Most people think the loudest thing you can do to an avoidant man is confront him. Tell him what he did. Send the long message. Explain in careful paragraphs exactly how he hurt you and exactly what he should have done instead. Most people think that is the moment he finally understands. It isn't. For a man who moves through life keeping everyone at arm's length, that message is the easiest thing in the world to survive. He reads it, he feels briefly guilty, he tells himself you're too emotional, and he moves on with a slightly cleaner conscience because now he gets to file you under "she was too much" instead of "I couldn't meet her." You handed him the exit. You wrapped it in a bow. You called it closure. What actually unsettles him is what you don't do. Right now, if you're honest, you are sitting somewhere quiet and replaying one specific sentence he said. Maybe it was, "I just need some space." Maybe it was, "I'm not in a place to give you what you deserve." Maybe it was the softer, crueler one, "I care about you. I just don't feel it the way you do." And you have been turning it over in your hands like a stone, trying to see it from a different angle, trying to find the version of that sentence that means he still wants you and just doesn't know how to say it. You keep drafting messages you don't send. You keep checking to see if he's watched the story. You keep almost picking up the phone to ask one clarifying question, just one, because if you could just understand what he meant, you could stop feeling like the ground is tilted. I want you to hear me on this. The tilt in the ground isn't him. The tilt is the position you've been standing in since the day he pulled away. Bent slightly toward him, weight forward, waiting for a signal. Straighten up, just for the length of this conversation. Straighten up, because I'm going to walk you through what actually reaches an avoidant man. And none of it looks like effort from your side. All of it looks like a woman quietly returning to her own life. Here's the truth about the avoidant man. He is not a villain. He is not a mastermind. He is a person who learned somewhere very early that closeness costs him something he cannot afford to pay. Intimacy for him feels like a room with the door closing. So when he sensed the room getting warm with you, when he felt the door start to swing, he did the only thing his nervous system knows how to do. He stepped back and made you responsible for the distance. He told you he wasn't ready. He told you it wasn't the right time. He told you he cared, just not in that way. And what he was really saying, if we translate it out of his language and into ours, is, "I need you close enough to reassure me that I am wanted, and far enough that I never have to actually give myself." He wanted the orbit. He wanted the wings. He didn't want the center. And here's something most people don't see coming. The avoidant man is not afraid of losing you when he pulls away. He is afraid of losing the version of you that made him feel chosen without ever having to choose you back. That version, the one who texts first, who softens her tone, who accepts the ambiguity, who agrees to be friends when friendship was never what she wanted, that version is the one his ego is quietly feeding on. The moment that version disappears, something in him goes very cold and very quiet, and he doesn't have the vocabulary to name what he's feeling. So he calls it confusion. He calls it missing you. He calls it curiosity. He tells his friends he's been thinking about you. What he's actually feeling is the absence of a mirror he didn't know he was standing in front of. So let's talk about what actually creates that absence. Not 7 tricks, not 7 tactics. 7 quiet returns to yourself, each of which does something specific to the interior of a man who is counting on you to stay the same. The first is your silence. And I want to be careful here because silence has been sold to women as a manipulation, a punishment, a game. And that is not what I'm asking you to do. Your silence is not a weapon. Your silence, it decides the size of your whole life. When you stop reaching for him, when the messages stop, when the check-ins stop, when the "hey, thinking of you" stops, what you are doing is not withholding warmth. You are stopping the leak. For months, maybe longer, your warmth has been flowing in one direction toward a man who was cupping his hands under it. drinking what he needed, and letting the rest spill onto the floor. When you close your hands, the leak stops, that's all. But to him, standing there with cupped palms, the sudden dryness is unsettling in a way he cannot explain to himself. He didn't expect you to disappear. He expected you to keep offering quietly, in smaller and smaller doses, until he was ready to reach back. And when the offering stops entirely, he is left with the echo of his own voice in a room he assumed you were still standing in. That echo is the beginning. The second is the disappearance of your explanations. Avoidant men are very comfortable with a woman who explains herself. They like the paragraphs. They like the I just want to be honest with you about how I feel. They like it because every paragraph is more information about your interior, more access to your emotional weather, more data they can use to calibrate exactly how much distance they need to keep. When you stop explaining, when you don't send the message that tells him what you've realized about him, when you don't lay out the case, when you don't post the caption that you know he'll see and decode, you take away his map. He does not know where you are anymore. And a man who has built his life around always knowing where the emotional exits are cannot bear not knowing where you are. He starts to wonder what you've been out. He starts to wonder what you've decided. And here's the thing. The wondering is what undoes him, not your words, the absence of them. The third is your visible re-entry into your own life, not the performance of it, not the curated highlight reel designed for him to scroll past and ache. That kind of thing he sees through immediately because avoidant men are, above all else, hyper-attuned to being pursued. The moment he senses a post is for him, he files it as evidence that you are still oriented around him, and his ego relaxes. What actually reaches him is when your life looks, from the outside, like it forgot to include him. Dinner with the friends he used to hear you talk about, a trip you finally took, a morning you spent on something that has nothing to do with romance at all, not staged, just present. He looks at that and something in his chest tightens because he understands, in a way he can't articulate, that he is watching a woman who is no longer in the waiting room. She has walked out. She has gone into the rest of the building. And he is still sitting in the chair he told her to wait in, wondering when the receptionist is going to call his name. Picture this. He's at 11 at night, phone face down on the nightstand, and he picks it up the way people pick up phones when they're pretending they're not looking for something. He scrolls. He sees you at a table with 3 people he doesn't recognize, laughing at something he wasn't part of. Your hair is different, or maybe it isn't, but something about you is. There is a lightness in your face he hasn't seen in months, and the last time he saw a version of that lightness, he was the reason for it. He puts the phone back down. He tells himself he's happy for you. He turns off the light, and then, in the dark, he lies there and does the math he has been avoiding. The math of what it means that you are laughing without him, that you are not waiting, that the life he assumed would pause when he stepped out has kept moving, and he is not in any of the frames. That is the moment, not the confrontation, not the caption, the math in the dark. The fourth is your refusal to accept the role of the friend. This one is quiet, and it is brutal in its effect. Avoidant men are famous for the offer, I still want you in my life, just in a different way. I don't want to lose you as a friend. You mean too much to me to just disappear. And the reason they offer it is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. They want the ambient warmth of your presence without any of the obligations of being your man. They want to text you on a Tuesday and have you answer. They want to know you're still there if the fear ever loosens its grip and they decide to come back. The friendship they're offering is not a friendship. It is a holding pen. And when you decline it, not with a speech, not with a hurt paragraph, just with a calm no, or with your silence when the friendly text arrives, you have done something to his sense of himself that he will not be able to name. He assumed you would take the crumbs because women who love him usually do. When you don't, he is forced to notice that the crumbs are crumbs. He is forced to notice that what he offered was not generous. He is forced to notice himself And avoidant men are structured at every level to avoid noticing themselves. Let me be clear about something. You are not doing any of this to him. That is the piece I need you to hear. You are not punishing him. You are not staging a play whose only audience is him. If you make any of this about him, you will feel it. Your energy will lean forward again. Your posture will curl toward the phone, and he will sense it the way animals sense weather. You are doing this because you are a woman who has decided quietly and without spectacle that she is not available for a half-life. The effect on him is a side effect. The point is you. The fifth is the disappearance of the reaction he was counting on. Avoidant men, whether they know it or not, keep a small internal library of your reactions. They know how you respond when they go quiet for 3 days. They know what you do when they post something ambiguous. They know the tone of your voice when you're hurt and trying not to show it. That library is part of how they maintain the dynamic. They can predict you, and predicting you is how they manage the distance. When your reactions change, when the 3-day silence produces nothing from you, when the ambiguous post produces nothing from you, when the how are you text produces a one-word reply or no reply at all, the library goes out of date. He turns to the page he has always turned to and finds it blank. And a man who cannot predict you is a man who has to actually think about you. And thinking about you is the thing he has been avoiding since the moment he sensed you might matter. Here's what most people miss about this. He didn't expect you to become unpredictable. He expected you to become more predictable. Smaller, softer, more accommodating, easier to keep at the exact distance he preferred. He expected the rejection to shrink you into a more manageable shape. Instead, you got quieter and larger at the same time. Cuter in your output, larger in your interior. And that combination is the one thing his strategy has no answer for, because his strategy was built for a woman who would keep performing for him. It was not built for a woman who stopped performing entirely and started instead to simply be. The sixth is your refusal to relitigate the past. Somewhere in the weeks after he pulled away, there will be a message. Maybe it comes as a memory. Maybe it comes as a song. Maybe it comes as a direct, careful, half-open text. I've been thinking about us. I know I handled things badly. I miss talking to you. And every part of you that has been waiting for that message will want to open the door immediately, because the door has been closed for so long and the cold has been so bad. I want to walk through this with you one piece at a time. When you answer that message with an eager willingness to revisit the whole story, to explain what he did wrong, to hear his side, to give him the paragraphs he refused to give you when it counted, you have handed him back the position he lost. He gets to be the one being understood again. He gets to be the interesting subject of the conversation. He gets to feel the warmth of your attention without ever having to actually change. And within 2 weeks, sometimes less, he will pull away again, because nothing has been rebuilt except his access to you. If, instead, you receive that message with warmth and no urgency, but if you answer at all with the tone of a woman who is genuinely fine, who is not on the edge of her seat, who is not composing a symphony inside her chest, something very specific happens on his end. He realizes that the door he thought would swing open on a hinge he owned has a lock he doesn't have the key to. It is not that you are cold. It is that you are not available in the old way. And avoidant men, more than anyone, understand what it means to be unavailable, because unavailability is their native language. When you speak it back to him, calmly, without theatres, he hears his own tongue in your mouth, and he does not know what to do. Let me pause on that for a second, because I don't want you to misread it. I am not telling you to be cold. I am not telling you to play the game he plays. Coldness from you would be another performance, and performances are exhausting, and he would eventually feel the effort behind them and relax. What I am asking you to do is warmer than coldness and harder than coldness. I am asking you to actually let him go inside yourself, so that when you speak to him, or don't, the calm in your voice is not a strategy. It is a fact. That is the tone he cannot survive, because it is the tone of a woman who is not, on any level, trying to get him back. The seventh is the slowest one, and it is the one that finishes the work. It is the quiet transformation of the woman he rejected into a woman he no longer has the standing to reject. When he stepped away from you, he stepped away from a specific version of you, the you who was still slightly bent toward him, still slightly organized around the possibility of him, still slightly willing to accept less than she wanted. That version was the one he told he wasn't ready for. That version was the one he told needed to be a friend. That version, the one he made the ruling about, is the one his mind is holding on to. His whole sense of the situation depends on her still existing. And here is what he does not yet know. She doesn't. She hasn't for weeks. Somewhere between the last message you sent him and the first morning you woke up without checking your phone for his name, she began to walk out of the room he last saw her in. She stopped tilting. She stopped arranging her days around a possible return. She started eating dinner without the phone next to her plate. She started laughing at things without checking to see if anyone had reacted to it online. She started to remember in small, unspectacular what her life was like before the arrangement of her heart got rearranged around a man who was never actually going to hold it. The woman he rejected is dissolving, and the woman appearing in her place is not someone he has ever met. I want to walk into that image slowly with you. Think of the moment he first pulled away as a small void, a pocket of air where there used to be closeness. In the beginning, he wanted that void. He designed it. He told himself the space would be a relief, but voids in real emotional physics do not stay empty. They fill with the sound of whatever was there before, and for the first few weeks, that sound is your presence, the memory of your texts, the shape of your attention, the small daily warmths he had stopped noticing until they were gone. That is when the void becomes a vacuum. The vacuum begins to pull at him in a way he cannot quite locate. He mistakes it for boredom, for restlessness, for a bad night. He goes on dates. He drinks with friends. The pull does not go away. Then the vacuum becomes an echo. Every quiet moment carries the shape of something missing. He hears a joke he would have sent you. He passes the restaurant. He sees the color of the coat you wore. The echo is not painful yet, but it is constant, and constant is what he has never been able to tolerate. He was built for spikes and retreats. He was not built for a low, steady presence of what he chose to lose. Then the echo becomes a weight. Somewhere around the second month, or the third, when he realizes you are actually not coming to knock on the door of what you had, the echo compresses into something he has to carry. He starts to feel it in the small hours. He starts to feel it when he lies to himself about how he's doing. And here's where it becomes unsettling for him, because he made this. He engineered this outcome. He asked for this space, and the space he was given is heavier than the closeness he ran from. Then the weight becomes an inquiry. He begins to ask himself questions he has spent his entire adult life not asking. Why can't I stay? What am I so afraid of? What did I actually have with her? And these questions, for an avoidant man, are the most disorienting thing that can happen, because his whole life has been organized around never having to answer them. Then the inquiry becomes a reckoning. Sometimes it comes as a text he starts and doesn't send. Sometimes it comes as a night he can't explain to his friends. Sometimes it comes as him showing up somewhere he knows you might be, and finding out you're not there, and understanding, in that flat overhead light, that he has become a man looking for a woman who has moved on. He does not know how to be that man. He does not have the software for it. And then, finally, the reckoning becomes a small, enclosed world he cannot leave, a terrarium of his own making, sealed at the top, containing the exact silence he told you he needed. He sits inside it and looks out at a life that has continued without him in it. And he understands, without ever quite letting the understanding surface, that the woman he thought he was letting down easy has become someone he no longer has the standing to reach for. That is the ego wound, not the loss of you. The loss of the version of himself that thought he could always come back. Now, let me talk to you, because we have been talking about him for long enough, and this cannot be a script that leaves you standing inside his weather. You are not a character in his emotional plot. You are the whole story here, and the 7 quiet moves I've walked you through only matter if they are being made by a woman who is doing them for herself. So here is what I want you to notice. Every one of those moves, your silence, the end of explanation, the return to your own life, the refusal of the friend role, the disappearance of the reaction, the refusal to relitigate, the slow becoming of a new version of yourself. Every single one of them is a way of gathering up something you had been quietly giving away. Your attention, your emotional labor, your explanations, your interpretive generosity, the exhausting job of always translating his behavior into a kinder story than it deserved. Your time, your future, small, unrepayable currencies that you had been paying into an account that never sent us a statement. When you stop paying in, at first it feels like loss. You feel the absence of the ritual. You feel the strange emptiness of not checking, not composing, not wondering, not waiting. That emptiness is not you missing him. That emptiness is the shape of all the energy you used to spend on him, sitting on the table, waiting for you to decide what to do with it. And what you do with it is the whole rest of your life. I want you to hear me on this, because it is the part women in your position most often skip. You have to actually take the energy back, not into another orbit, not into the next man, not into a project of becoming someone he would regret losing. Because if that is the project, he is still the sun, and you are still in orbit around him, just further out. The energy has to come back to you, into your own center, into the small, unglamorous work of remembering who you were before the arrangement. That means picking up the phone and calling the friend you neglected while you were emotionally on standby. It means going back to the thing you used to love and had quietly stopped doing because your attention was elsewhere. It means eating properly. It means sleeping properly. It means moving your body not to be desirable to him, but to feel in your own skin that you are alive in it. These are small things. They are not slogans. They are not affirmations spoken into a mirror. They are the daily, ordinary acts of a woman deciding without announcement that her life is a waiting room, and you have to let yourself grieve. That is the piece nobody wants to say, because grief is inconvenient and grief is not marketable. But something is over, not just the relationship, the version of you who believed in it. The version who thought if she just loved him well enough, he would rise to meet her. The version who kept rereading his messages for the sentence that would explain everything. That version deserves a proper goodbye. She wasn't foolish. She was hopeful, and hope is not a character flaw, no matter how many times it has been treated like one. Let her go gently. Thank her for what she was willing to try. And then let the woman she is becoming take the next step. The woman she is becoming is not colder. She is not harder. She is not armored. That is the caricature of healing, and it is a caricature invented by people who have never actually done the work. The woman she is becoming is softer where it matters and firmer where it counts. She is warm to the people who show up. She is calm about the ones who don't. She is not spending her evenings decoding text messages because the men in her life send messages that mean what they say. She is not asking anyone to be ready. She is asking quietly whether they are actually here. If they aren't, she goes back to her own life, without ceremony, without a fight, without a paragraph. That is what dignity looks like from the inside. It is not a posture, it is a habit of returning to yourself. And I want to say one more thing about him, and then we will close this. There is a chance, a real one, that he will come back. That's just true, and I would be lying to you if I dressed it up. Avoidant men often do return, because the mechanism I described, the void, the vacuum, the echo, the wait, the inquiry, the reckoning, the terrarium, is a real mechanism, and it produces real returns. He may text, he may show up, He may say the sentences you spent months hoping he would say. And when that happens, you are going to be tempted to treat his return as the vindication of your silence. Don't. If your silence was a strategy to bring him back, then his return will feel like a victory, and you will hand him the key you spent all this time forging. Your silence was not a strategy. It was a boundary. It was the shape of your self-respect made audible by being quiet. If he comes back, the question is not whether he wants you now. The question is whether the man standing in front of you is a man who has done the interior work required to hold what he tried to put down. That is not a question you answer in one conversation. That is a question you watch over time with your own life still fully in your hands. And if he doesn't come back, and sometimes he doesn't, and I will not pretend otherwise, I want you to understand that this was still worth it. Not because you won. There is no winning here. Because you stopped losing yourself. Because you took the energy you had been spending on a man who could not meet you, and you spent it, instead, on the woman he could not meet. That is not a consolation prize. That is the actual prize. The rest of your life is the actual prize, and no man's return can add to it or subtract from it, because it was never on the table for him to give. So here is where we land. Your silence after his rejection is not a punishment, not a game, not a manipulation, not a bid. Your silence is the sound of a woman going back inside her own life and closing the door gently behind her. What it does to his ego is real, and I have described it honestly, because I want you to understand the mechanism you are inside. But the mechanism is not the point. You are the point. The 7 quiet moves are not 7 ways to destroy him. They are 7 ways to stop dismantling yourself. He didn't reject the whole of you. He rejected what he was able to see of you through the small window of his own limitations. That window was never big enough to hold you. You have spent long enough trying to make yourself narrow enough to fit through it. Step back from the window. Let him keep his view. Go and live in the rest of the house. And the next time you feel the pull to reach for the phone, to send the message, to explain one more time, to check the story, to ask the mutual friend, to draft the paragraph, I want you to notice that pull without obeying it. Just notice it. Set the phone down. Go and do something a woman with her whole life ahead of her would do. That is not a slogan. That is an instruction, small and daily and unglamorous, and it is the only instruction that has ever worked. You are not the woman he rejected. You stopped being her some time ago, quietly, without anyone announcing it. He is still, in his head, trying to reach a version of you who no longer answers to that name. Let him keep reaching. You have somewhere else to be. Close the door gently, turn off the light in that room, and go.